Here we are, chapter 7. After a substantial lunch at the end, Will and Horace prepared to mount for the ride back to Grimsdale. Before they did, however, Horace untied the bow case hanging behind his saddle and passed it to Will. "This is yours," he said. "Holt thought you might need it." A delighted grin broke over Will's face as he slid the massive longbow from the case and felt its weight and balance for a few seconds. Then he deftly slipped one end into a leather loop on the back of his right boot and leaned forward, bending the heavy bow across his shoulders as he slid the string up into the grooved recess in the tip. He drew back on the string once or twice, testing the familiar weight of the draw. Then he quickly unstrung the recurved bow and placed that in the bow case. "That feels a lot better," he said. Horace nodded. He understood the satisfaction and comfort that a familiar weapon brought with it. Then they mounted and rode away from the inn altogether. Horace, on his massive battle horse, towered over Will, who, of course, was riding Tug. The dog loped along in front of them, questing back and forth across their path as he found new scents to chase down and identify. She had deigned to accompany Will on the trip to the correct flagon, as Toba was busy on some chore for Malcolm. "I heard you had a dog these days," Horace said. "What's his name?" "He's a she," Will replied, "and I haven't got round to choosing a name yet." Horace studied the dog thoughtfully. "Blackie would be good," he offered after a while. Will raised an eyebrow. "That's an original thought," he said. "How in the world did you ever think of that?" Horace decided to ignore the sarcasm. "It's better than calling him the dog." "Her," said Will. "She's a she, remember?" "Whatever," Horace continued. "A dog should have a name, and you can hardly criticize me for being unoriginal if you haven't even thought of a name yet. Blackie is better than nothing." "That's debatable," Will answered, but secretly he was enjoying this friendly bickering with Horace. It was just like old times, he thought. "Well, I'm going to call her, Blackie," Horace decided. Will shrugged. "If you choose to, but she's an intelligent animal. I doubt that she'll answer to such a mundane name." Horace looked sidelong at him. His friend seemed very sure of himself. Suddenly, the tall warrior let out a piercing whistle and called, "Blackie!" "Stay, girl." Instantly the girl stopped her questing and turned to face him, one forepaw raised, her head tilted inquisitively. Horace made a triumphant gesture in Will's direction. Will snorted in derision. "That doesn't prove anything," he protested. "She heard the whistle, that's all. You could have called out bread and butter pudding, and she would have stopped." "Bread and butter pudding," Horace repeated with mock incredulously. "That's your suggestion for a name, is it? And you have the nerve to criticize Blackie." "I simply meant she stopped because you whistled," Will persisted. In the past he had usually won these verbal encounters with Horace. His friend now smiled at him in an annoyingly superior way. As they rode up to the dog, who was still waiting for them, Will muttered out of the corner of his mouth, "Traitor." Unfortunately, Horace overheard him. "Well, that's a slight improvement on bread and butter pudding, isn't it, Blackie?" he said. And to Will's total chagrin, the dog barked once as if in agreement, then darted ahead again to resume her questing. Horace let out a contented chuckle. Then he decided he should let Will off the hook. "So the whole story about the sorcerer was nothing but rumours," he said. Getting back to serious business. They had managed to discuss some of the events at Macindow over lunch, but there were still details that Horace wanted to know. Will was glad to see they had dropped the subject of the dog's name. "Not quite," he said. "The lights and strange sounds and apparitions in the forest were all real enough, but they were illusions created by Malcolm. Alice figured that out," he added. Horace nodded. "She was always quick on the uptake, wasn't she?" "Absolutely. Anyway, Malcolm used his illusions to frighten people away and keep his little community safe. Pretty soon, people started believing that Malcolm was back. Then Karen took advantage of the situation to seize control of the castle. He knows a lot about poisons, and he slowly poisoned Lord Siren until the poor man was helpless, virtually dead. Kieran knew that Ormond would be an unpopular lord in his father's place, and he knew that people would be prepared to believe it when Kieran spread rumours that Ormond was dabbling in the black arts. That gave Kieran a chance to take control." "But you got Ormond out?" Horace asked, and Will nodded. "Just in time. Kieran had poisoned him as well, but he didn't get the chance to finish the job." "What's happened to Siren?" Horace asked. Buttle character said he may be already dead. Will could only shrug. We don't know. He could well be. Now that Karen has shown his hand, there's no reason for him to keep Siren alive. My guess is that he's killed him already. Horace frowned. This Karen sounds like a thoroughly nasty piece of work, he said. He didn't seem that way when I met him, Will admitted, a little crestfallen. He had me fooled at the start. I was convinced that Ormond was behind all those hocus pocus and that Karen was on the side of the angle. I was wrong. Angels, I was wrong. Now the first priority is to get Alice out. Horace nodded agreement. How do you plan to go about it? Will glanced sidelong at him. I thought we'd assault the castle, replied Annie casually. You know about that sort of thing, don't you? Horace thought for a moment before answering. He pursed his lips. I know the theory, he said. I can't say I've ever actually done it. Well, of course not, Will agreed, but the theory is pretty simple, isn't it? At the last moment he managed to make it sound like a statement, not a question. He didn't want Horace to know that he was working entirely in the dark, but Horace was too busy getting his thoughts to notice the fact. People often assumed that Horace was not a great thinker, even that he was a little slow. They were wrong. He was methodical, where Will tended towards flashes of brilliance and intuition, jumping from one fact to another and then back again like a grasshopper. Horace would carefully think a problem through in strict sequence, one concept leading logically to another. I feel like I'm like that rather than like Will. His eyes narrowed as he recalled the lessons he'd learnt in battle school under the tutelage of Sir Rodney. Even after he had been knighted and appointed to Castle Arelyn, Horace had spent several months each year with his original mentor at Castle Redmont, learning the final points of the warrior's craft. Well, he said at length, to assault a castle you need siege engines, of course. Siege engines, Will repeated. He knew vaguely what Horace was talking about. He knew definitely that he didn't have any. Catapults, mangonels, trebuchets. The sort of thing that throw rocks and giant spears and dead cows at the defenders and batter down the walls. Dead cows, Will interrupted. Why would you throw dead cows at the wall? You throw them over the walls. It's supposed to spread disease and lower the defenders' morale, Horace told him. Will shook his head. I don't suppose it does much for the cows' morale either. Horace frowned at him, feeling they were getting off the point. Forget the dead cows. You throw boulders and such to breach the walls. Another detail occurred to him, and he added, and siege towers are always handy too, but not absolutely necessary, Will interjected. Horace chewed his bottom lip for a moment. No, not absolutely. As long as you have plenty of ladders. Yeah, we'll have them, Will said, making a mental note to himself. Build plenty of ladders. And as far as numbers go, Sir Rodney always felt you needed at least a 3-to-1 majority. 3-to-1? Isn't that a little excessive? Will asked. He didn't like the way this conversation was progressing, but Horace didn't register his growing doubt. Well, at least, you see, the defenders have all the advantage. They've got the high ground. They're concealed behind the wall, so you need to draw as many of them as possible away from the place where you make your real assault. For that, you need at least 3 times as many men as they do. 4 times is even better. Oh, that was all Will could come up with. Horace frowned, remembering what he had been told about Castle Macindow when Crowley and Holt had briefed him some weeks back. I figure a place like Macindow has a permanent garrison of 35 men? Will nodded slowly. Yes, that sounds about right. So we need about 105, maybe 110 men to be on the safe side. That would be 3-to-1, I suppose, Will agreed. That way we can mount fake assaults to 2 sides and draw most of the defenders away from the point we really want to attack. But don't they know that's the way it's done? Will asked, trying to salvage something from this conversation. Of course they do. So couldn't we, for example, just assault in one place so they'll think it's a mock attack to draw off the numbers, but then keep on and make it the real assault? Horace considered that. We could, I suppose, but they can't take the risk that we won't do exactly that. They have to counter each threat as it arises and assume it's the real assault. Then, when we've got them strung out all over the walls, running from place to place and totally confused and disorganized, we hit them with the real attack. Yes, that makes sense, Will said. Despondently, he realized it did, in fact, make sense. Of course, Horace said, warming to this theme now as he remembered more details. The quality of your attacking troops is a big factor, and the quality of the defenders. What sort of men does Karen have, on the whole? We think they're pretty low quality, Will said, beginning to brighten a little. That matches what I saw of them. The ones I saw would look more at home with a dagger in an alley on a dark night. They didn't look like prime fighting men. They had already discussed the meeting with John Buttle the previous day. Most of the original garrison have gone, Will said. They weren't too fond of the new men Karen's been recruiting. Will they fight for us? Horace asked. Will shook his head. No, unfortunately they all think Malcolm is a sorcerer. Most of them have left the immediate district looking for other work. So who do we have? Are they trained? Do they know one end of a sword from another, or are they really all farmers and plowboys? The Scandinavians, Will said. Horace gave a small whoop of triumph. Scandinavians? That's terrific. Well, if we've got troops like that, we'll get away with a 3-to-1 majority, I should think. Maybe even a little less. He paused, then asked the question Will had been dreading. How many do we have? A little less than 3-to-1, as a matter of fact, Will hedged. Horace shrugged. No matter, I'm sure we can manage. So, how many exactly? You mean counting you and me? Will asked. For the first time he saw a flick of suspicion in Horace's eyes. Yes, I think we'd better count you and me. How many? Horace's tone of voice told Will that he would tolerate no further prevarication. The ranger took a deep breath. Counting you and me, 27. 27, Horace repeated, his tone absolutely flat and devoid of expression. But they're Canadians, after all, Will said hopefully. His friend looked at him, one eyebrow raised in disbelief. They'd better be, he said heavily. Alrighty, I'd like to thank you very much for listening to read up to chapter 7. If you'd like to listen to me read chapter 8, then please stay posted and hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.